All right, let's hit record on this bad boy. Talk about my Circa picks for week 15. This is the APSportsPod. Quick recap of last week now that we've had already 4 games into week 15. Let's talk about what happened last week. Atlanta Falcons versus the Bucks. Kind of a game of miscues. I still like the Falcons pick there. The Falcons missed 2 field goals, had a safety. Ritter threw an interception on their own 10-yard line, which led to a fairly easy Tampa Bay touchdown. Yet, despite all that, they were covering with 30 seconds left in the game. I think Atlanta let that one get away. Didn't mind the pick. Colts at the Saints in a pick'em game. Blowout city, wasn't close. The Colts appear to be a different team at home than on the road as they put a beat down on the Steelers yesterday. So just for context, I'm recording at 4:05 a.m. Sunday, December 17th, out here on the West Coast. We've already had the Thursday game. We've already had 3 Saturday games, one of which we'll talk about in a moment. Texans at the Jets. I had this written down in my notes. Potential letdown game for Houston. After beating Denver the previous week, they got blown out. That wasn't close. How about the Vikings at the Raiders? A scoreless battle until mid-4th quarter when finally the Minnesota Vikings put a field goal up. They had missed a field goal earlier. They had a chance to kick a field goal at the end of the game to win 6-0. Opted to punt and play field position, make the Raiders move down the field, which they couldn't do. So we pushed on the Vikings at the Raiders. And last but not least, Dallas's beat down of Philadelphia. Game wasn't close. So 1-3 in 1 week, not good. That's following a 1-4. So we're struggling. Down to 36, 32, and 2. That's teetering on, don't even bother. Let's talk about week 15. My first pick was last night's game, Denver at Detroit. I had Denver plus 4.5, and this is pretty cool. Silver lining here. I guess I would love to do just a recap on Sunday night. So I can recap this game. Shouldn't take too long, but I can tell you why I liked Denver. I liked 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 games, and one of those losses was a 3-interception loss at Houston when Russell Wilson threw a pick in the end zone, essentially to end that game. So Denver's playing better. Detroit, not so much. 1-3 ATS in their last 4 games. Despite that, despite what I think most people would consider Denver kind of on the ascent and Detroit wobbling a little bit, my stats still spit out across the board. Take Detroit. I had Detroit minus 6.17. That's the calculation that my formula spit out. And the Pythagorean formula, which was 12-1 in the playoffs last year, had Detroit minus 5. So anything Detroit minus 5 and less, you take Detroit. I ignored that. I went with Denver, and they lost. Other things I looked at here, if I look at the fourth quarter cover rate for both these teams, Detroit better for the whole season. The only one where Denver had the edge was recently within the last 3 weeks, 66% to 33%. But on the road, Denver 38%, Detroit 50% at home. As a dog, Denver 54%. As a favorite, Detroit 59%. So the resume there was probably leaning Detroit. I bucked the data and got bucked. That one's done. Game 2. We like Atlanta at Carolina. Again, I'm not going to shy away from Atlanta. They don't play as well on the road. They are 1-2 as road favorites against the spread this year. But let's talk about that game, those games. The game that they won was at the Jets, a game that I was tempted to pick Atlanta and didn't. And so that's one of the reasons why I backed Atlanta last week and they lost. The other 2 games that they did lose, at Tennessee, Tennessee was coming off a bye. I wouldn't say it was a must-win game, but a game where Tennessee needed to get back on track. Didn't cover that one. They didn't cover at Arizona. This was in Kyler Murray's return. If you remember, Kyler Murray had that 120-yard run where he actually only gained 40 yards, but it was late in the fourth quarter. Arizona went down and scored. They didn't cover that one. So They're 2-1 against the spread in their last three, with the loss being last week at Tampa Bay, which I mentioned. 2 missed field goals by Koo, a safety, an interception on their own 10-yard line. That's approximately 15 points of differential there. I don't see that happening again. They haven't been very good on the road, but Carolina hasn't been very good anywhere. So if I look at my ratings, I've got Atlanta minus 7.6, in which case you're only giving up 3. You would take Atlanta. Pythagorean formulas got Atlanta minus 2.6, in which case you would take the points with Carolina. So it's a little bit of a split there. Fourth quarter cover rates for Atlanta aren't very good. Their best one is recently. In the last 3 weeks, they're at 73%, which is top 5 in the NFL. The other ones aren't great, but they're all worse for Carolina. 18%, 11%, 21%, 18%. So I look for Atlanta to bounce back here. Carolina's home after 3 straight road games. Is that going to give them a little bit of a boost, a little bit of an edge? Atlanta's playing for something. Carolina's not really playing for anything other than maybe the top pick. Or did they trade the top pick? Does Carolina have their top pick? I don't remember. But anyway, we're going Atlanta minus 3 at Carolina. Whew. Game number 3. Now I'm on the opposite side of a lot of things I'm seeing online. A lot of people love the Bears plus 3.5. I'm on Cleveland. Let me tell you why. Chicago, 4-1 against the spread their last 5 games, and they are playing better. They're hot, but I'm discounting some of those wins. First of all, they covered against the Saints, in which the Saints, every possession that the Saints had the ball in the fourth quarter started in Bears territory. They missed a field goal. Okay. And at the end of the game, they opted not to kick a field goal to cover the spread. They opted not to score a touchdown, which would have covered the spread. They just took a knee and ran out the clock. So, not sure about that one. Bears against Carolina, I think they might have lost that one. Was that a Thursday night game? 3.5, Carolina covered. Then they played Detroit twice. And we know the Bears have had some success against Detroit. They're not playing Detroit again. And then they beat Minnesota. Minnesota in that game had more turnovers than a freaking bakery on Sunday morning. The Bears didn't score a touchdown, yet they still won the game. So I think their recent success might be a little inflated. My stats have Cleveland minus a point. So in that case, you want to take the Bears. The Pythagorean formula got Cleveland minus 5.5, in which case you would want to take Cleveland. So there's a little bit of balance there. What I'm going off of is the Browns. Am I saying Cleveland? Yeah. You take the Browns. I'm taking the Browns. Average points given up at home this year, 12.6. So I'm going with stout defense at home. They're 6-1 at home against the spread. They're 4-0 at home as favorites against the spread. Their cover rates are pretty good. 60.5% overall. That's top 5 in the NFL. That's the overall full season fourth quarter cover rate. They're 44.5 recently. They're 78.4% fourth quarter cover rate at home. They're 67.1% cover rate at home. If you look at their kind of cumulative fourth quarter cover rate, which is the combination of what about we intersect the home games where they are a favorite, 87.3% with 100% cover rates. So those are all far superior to Chicago. I will admit Chicago's playing better. It might be a little inflated. I think the Browns play well enough to cover 3.5 at home. What's next? Dallas at Buffalo. I see a lot of people on Buffalo. So pretty much dead even. We've got Dallas 3-3 road against the spread. Buffalo's 3-3 at home against the spread. As a road dog, Dallas is 0-2. That was against San Francisco. That was against Philadelphia. I don't put Buffalo in that tier of teams. Is this a team that, again, also is playing better? Probably, but they've been up and down and inconsistent the whole year. Dallas, minus that little sputter against Arizona, it's been pretty damn good. Yeah, they got blasted by the 49ers, but we've seen that before, so I can't hold that against them. They're 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 games. That's Dallas. Prior to this little 2-0-1 run for the Buffalo Bills, they had lost their last 6. So lose your last 6, ATS. They're on a little bit of a heater, 2-0-1. The data spits out for me, Dallas minus 2.75. So that's a big differential. If I've got Dallas minus 2.75 and they're getting 2 points, that's massive. Now, I don't think you could argue Dallas has been the better team for the whole season. I don't think you could argue Dallas probably, if you just thought about it, has the better stats recently. So both of those go into the equation. My Pythagorean formula's got Buffalo minus 0.5. So if it's minus 0.5, you don't want to be giving up minus 2. That's leaning Dallas also. Fourth quarter cover rates for the Cowboys overall. The fourth quarter, full season, 62%. That's good for number 3 in the NFL. Recently, 56%. On the road, 39.4%. As a dog, 0%. Right, and that is the games against Philly and San Francisco. If you look at Buffalo, their best one, these aren't terrible. I expect this game to be competitive. I just think Dallas is the better team. 52.9% overall, 69.2%, which is top 10 for the last 3 weeks, 63% at home, and 54% as a favorite. So, again, Buffalo has performed pretty well. I think they're better at home. Their splits at home are an average score of 29-14. Again, all of that goes into the formula, but the formula still spits out. Probably take Dallas here. So I'm going to take Dallas. The qualitative part of this game, letdown spot. Well, it's a letdown spot for Dallas. They just beat Philadelphia. They got themselves into first place. Boom. And they got to travel to Buffalo. Buffalo's in a letdown spot too. They got the monkey off the back against Kansas City, a Kansas City team that's struggling a little bit. I kind of quantify this as a bigger letdown spot for Buffalo. They finally beat Kansas City, even though they're fighting to get in the playoffs. There's a reason they're fighting to get in the playoffs. They've been inconsistent. Dallas finally got over on Philadelphia. They got to go to Buffalo. They're trying to stay in first place in the division. They can sniff the 49ers if something happens unforeseen with the Niners. I like this as a better spot. If I'm going to take teams that are comparable, I'd rather have the points in hand. Don't think the weather is going to be a huge factor in this game. If it were snowing, then maybe I might lean more in Buffalo's direction. So I expect the game to be close, but I've got the better team. I think the team with more incentive. I think the team with less of a letdown. And I'm getting points. I'm going to take Dallas. Last but not least, Baltimore -3 at Jacksonville. Baltimore, not as good on the road. Their splits are 23-15.5. But Jacksonville at home hasn't been good either. Their splits are 22-23. So they're actually negative differential at home. Baltimore 3-2 against the spread. On the road, 2-2 against the spread as a road favorite. Jacksonville, again, those numbers aren't great for Baltimore, but they're worse for Jacksonville. Jacksonville 3-4 against the spread at home, 0-2 against the spread as a home dog. My number spits out Baltimore -9.8, another humongous differential. Pythagoras only has this Baltimore -2. So you wouldn't want to be giving up the 3. So here, my data is split with the Pythagorean formula. I'm going to lean Baltimore. I'm going to lean with my data. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I'll track down my record as I have developed this over the last couple weeks. Cover 2 rate. Okay, fourth quarter cover rate. Baltimore's number 2 in the NFL full season, 62.2%. What that means is 62% of the fourth quarter on average they're covering. Recently, it's only 26.9. On the road, 75.7%. As a favorite, 59%. As a road favorite, 69.6%. Okay, so in this spot for this season, when Baltimore has been a road favorite, they've been covering in the fourth quarter for 70% of the clock time. If we look at Jacksonville is also top 10 for the season, 56%, recently 33, at home 33, as a dog 40, as a home dog 0%. And that's happened in two games. They haven't covered either of them. One was definitely against the 49ers. I'm not sure what the other one was off the top of my head. Is Baltimore looking ahead to the 49er game on Christmas? I don't think so. It's hard for me to trust Baltimore, so I think this is a pretty short number. I don't think they're looking ahead. Jacksonville's a formidable enough opponent to have their attention. Jacksonville's motivated. They got teams. The Colts are clicking on their heels a little bit in the division, so they can't falter too much. I just think Baltimore is the superior team. So we already lost the Broncos in a game that wasn't close. I really like Atlanta at Carolina coming off of a bad loss last week, a game that I think they should have won to take first place in the division. They got to fight to get that back. I think I'm counter most people with the Browns-Bears game. But I'm going to fade Chicago's recent success a little bit and back the overall body of work, which is the Browns defense. I like Dallas at Buffalo. I think it's the better team getting points with an inconsistent Buffalo team. And then I'll take Baltimore. And again, it's hard for me to trust Baltimore. This number's got to be pretty short, in my opinion, for me to take Baltimore. Don't have a ton of confidence in Jacksonville right now. So that's that. Can't go 5-0. We've already been pegged with a loss with Denver. And so let's see if we can turn this around, go 4-1, get that record back into it being worthwhile to do this range. It's always going to be fun, but man, you can't spend hours and hours on this and not produce results. So we're going to keep grinding. This is week 15. We got 16, 17, 18 to come. See if we can finish hot. Thanks for watching. Peace.